Buddy, it is another Wine and Comics pairing show. I'm just going to jump over now. I have preset Instagram, but I always have to jump over and actually click the little go live button once it's time. And 3, 2, 1. We are live on Instagram. We are live everywhere that matters. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Right. Here we go. Wine and Comics pairing show. Welcome, everybody. We have a very special guest today. I will introduce him right after our snazzy opening, as always. Here we go.
Nice.
All right, folks. Welcome today. Welcome, Sean Wood, the creator of The Fog Within. Issue number 2, now on Kickstarter. You can see on the little ticker down below, it is on Kickstarter until April 12th, 6 o'clock PM PDT. So you have until then. This is the main cover by main series artist. If I'm pronouncing it right, I believe it's just like my name, David, but David, but like, or like, but it's like, it's spelled like deity, right? So D-E-I, David, V-I-D. So not like I spell my name. David. Ooh, what's his last name there, Sean?
Dion.
David Dion. I know. See, I would know if the ticker wasn't in the way. I had to put that ticker there. Gosh darn. But anyway, and then we also have, this is one of the alt covers. This is my favorite one right here. The Fog Within number 2 alt cover. This gives it a little bit of like almost a horror vibe feel to it. And this little J. Joe style cover looking thing that is also, I believe this one is by Corelo, Corelo. And who did, there's another, this one, that my favorite one is by Gillard here on this guy's name. Goulart. Thank you. All right. You can see amazing art, The Fog Within. This is a superhero sci-fi dystopian comic book in that vein of like the Scott Lobdell era X-Men and Excalibur, one of those like kind of team books, but it is in a future dystopia where there is a strange time-traveling fog that puts our protagonist into this future after a horrific event has happened. That's all I'm going to reveal. That is, we've only read issue number 1. That's kind of all we know. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the storytelling in this comic because it is something else. But anyways, let's first talk about Sean himself. So first off, Sean, welcome to the Wine and Comics pairing show. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So this is the first time on. This is the first time that we have read any of your work to our knowledge. You might have been in an anthology or something like that we may have actually stumbled across something you've written. Nope. He's shaking his head.
Like, no, I'm an original. You've never seen me before. I'm a future god in this
All right. And everyone watching, sound off in the comments. Let us know who is here. I can see it's slowly ticking up there. Sorry, Sean, you were saying something.
Yeah. I was saying I gotta start thinking that way, that I'm becoming a comic god. That would be the way to think about it that way.
Absolutely. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Well, the bigger go home.
I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but right before we went live, like a half hour before we went live, Tom Hutchinson jumped on my post about this show, and he was like, "Yeah, it's going to his head," and I was like, "Oh yeah, he's already sending me a message like being like, here's how the show's going to go."
I saw that right before. I was like, "Oh crap!" Trying to be helpful.
So real quick, Sean, talk to us about your background. Like, what led up to this sort of foray into comics? Like, go take us back to childhood, Sean. What were his influences?
Right before you do that, Sean, Dallas, I'm just going to let you know you're frozen to me, so I'm going to do that thing where I eject you and bring you back to see if we can get your picture unfrozen. And back in. And there we go. Okay.
All right.
All right, Sean, take it away.
Go for it, Sean.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, my dad, he already had a 10,000 plus comics. So I pretty much was born.
So the work was done. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't have an option. My middle name is Logan because of Wolverine. So
come on.
Told I had to read comics and nothing else.
Wow. I'm surprised you didn't rebel. I'm surprised
you did at some point. You had to have, right?
I'm gonna right. It's like I'm gonna go work for Barbie. You, Dad.
Right.
Well, for a little while, like teenage years, I wasn't reading comics for a little while, and I was trying to be like the skateboarder punk kind of guy, and I was really just a poser.
There you go.
And really, I just came back to it. I became an adult. But yeah, so I had comics in my life, starting out. And then, of course, X-Men, the animated series, Batman animated series, and all those. Those were like
back home
when I was young, because I was born in '88, so I'm in that generation. So I'm loving '97 right now. It's insane. So that was my childhood. I had anything I could possibly think of to read from the '70s, the '80s.
Wow.
And the early Image stuff. He had them all. And sometimes,
so he had the collection in the house, or was there a store? Wow.
Garage,
maybe. No, it was at the house.
Wow.
Yeah, and he always said that was my college fund growing up. And I'm well past my college years, and it's still in his at his house. He never sold it, so, which is fine.
So he never turned it into a fund.
Yes, it was always the promise until I was 18. He's like, "No, I'm sorry, I can't. I can't do it.
You don't value this yet, son."
You're right. So you don't need an education. Just go in the workforce. You'll be fine.
Right. He's like, "Kid, go get debt like everyone else. Okay, these are my comics."
Right.
So, real quick, you mentioned inheriting his sort of collection and sort of growing up in that. As parents and fathers want to do, they pass on their favorites to their children. So, what were some of your dad's favorites that you sort of picked up on through that experience?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the biggest one was definitely the X-Men, especially the '80s X-Men, and of course Spider-Man. The things of that nature, all the Marvel stuff. He had tons of DC stuff too, but as a kid, I was more into the Marvel because it's more not always upbeat, but it's less heavy than the DC stuff has always been. I feel like so it was easier for a kid to get into. Still love Batman, but not the actual 70s 80s Batman when I'm like 5 years old.
Right. Awesome.
Cool.
And so, this. Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead. So someone was talking just there in a moment. Okay, no. All right. And once again, one more time, Dallas. I'm just gonna try this one more time, and then we'll go. Maybe it's the eclipse today, and like everyone's online. Oh yeah. Remove and add. You know what? I can see my video stuttering to myself as well. So I'm just like, I feel like the internet's kind of effed today a little bit, and it's probably all the eclipse hullabaloo and everyone being on it and using it and blah blah blah. And it's the bandwidth is kind of sucky. So yeah. So we'll just deal. But so it's funny because for me, I didn't use it for a college fund. I didn't have to. I was one of those blessed kids that I was able, like my parents were able to get me through undergrad, and I didn't need more than undergrad, so that was good. But when I graduated college, I did have a massive comic collection, and I wanted to move to New York City, and I did pretty much sell the whole thing on eBay. It to fund like the first year of my adult existence, like the move. One, I couldn't take it with me really, and I didn't have the money to go anywhere else. So I was like, well, this is going to fund the move. I have to look for a job. I was a starving artist at the time, so it was like that was going to take me some time. So I did. I unfortunately bit the bullet. I'm not going to say unfortunately, actually. I think it taught me to let go in certain ways, which I was like, I feel like the comics world could use more of being able to let go of things. We so many fewer fights over which version of a character or generation of things. If we could all just be like, cherish your memories. You'll always have those stories. They're still in print. Go back and love them as much as you want, but for God's sakes, let the world keep going and let it keep evolving, and let's not remain in whatever decade you grew up in. It's like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Like we can keep going from there. I did want to ask, so you were what was the decade that defined you the most as a kid to a teenager? Like
comic wise? I mean, definitely 90s.
Wise, or just everything, because like music, comics, everything, like the stuff where it's like this is what, because of that, you're at that age where everything imprints on your brain in just that perfect way where you're like, this is mine, like forever, and nothing else can quite touch it. What era was that for you?
Yeah, definitely 90s, early 2000s. I mean,
Okay,
a lot
perfect.
of my favorite writers in general now is more of the early 2000s type stuff. So like Brian Michael Bendis, Jeff Lemire, Scott Snyder, all that kind of stuff, or Mark Miller,
Yeah.
um, things of that nature. So yeah, both of those I would say would be huge in my life.
Okay.
Beautiful. I was
Now
gonna
I see you picked up. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
No. You first.
I see you picked up quite the collection back there yourself. Now walk us into that world.
Yeah, that's my con collection. Pretty much every year I go to a con, I'm always hiding like the best stuff with my head. I got Hellboy, I got Darkseid, I've got World War Hulk, Wolverine with on top of a destroyed Sentinel. That's probably my favorite piece. That took probably 4 holidays worth of gifts from my wife. I was like, I have to have this. How many holidays can I take up for it? Valentine's Day, Christmas, birthday,
That's great.
But yeah, the helicarrier for Lego. That was way more than I wanted to pay, and she just got it for 10 years. So. But it's totally worth it. It's an amazing piece to have in the room. So
you mentioned the cons. How early were you exposed to the cons, considering your dad had this collection?
Yeah, so really, I mean, growing up, there wasn't really any cons around here. I mean, early 2000s even, there wasn't anything close by. So like, I would say when I became an adult, so like, I don't know, I'm 35 now, so maybe 15 years ago or so, I started going all the time to all the local ones and sometimes further. I was in New York Comic Con about 10 years ago. And things of that nature, but I've always
the last time we were there too, I think.
Yeah, it's expensive. But yeah, so I mean, I've always gone to cons locally. When I started doing this writing thing last year, I did a little tour trying to meet creators and trying to see what they do that works, and try to duplicate that with what I'm doing myself. So yeah, more cons last year, and I'll have more cons in the future too.
Sweet. Fantastic. You're digging your heels in. We like it.
Yeah. Try it.
And did you grow up in the Virginia area? Is that like your home base?
Yeah. So I lived here pretty much all my life, and I moved away like the next city over, and then I came back, and I'm literally like in the same neighborhood growing up, bought a house in the same place.
Oh, that's cool.
Perfect.
Not far.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Me and Dallas both had very long. Neither of us are from Virginia, but I was there for 10 years the Fairfax and McLean area and whatnot. So Northern Virginia, fairly northern, right outside the DC area. And Dallas was, where were you? Richmond, Dallas?
Fairfax.
You're also Fairfax. We didn't know each other when we were in Virginia. We didn't meet until we came out to LA, but then bonded over that. So that was always a thing. But yeah, very familiar with the area. I used to do Baltimore Comic-Con all the time during my years there, but they are very small cons. They're not particularly, if people are used to things like even WonderCon or Emerald Con, they're not that. Or they weren't. Certainly not back in the day.
Although I hear Baltimore is really picking up speed, so I may be.
Oh yeah, Baltimore's cool. I went there last year. That's where I met a lot of the creators that I've talked to in different groups. So yeah, Baltimore's nice.
Yeah, put that one on the list.
Yeah. So we actually haven't gotten your story though. So you grew up surrounded by comics. Your dad obviously and his collection were very influential. Was writing something that you wanted to do even outside of comics, or was comics the allure? And perhaps not being an artist or what have you, you're like, well, I'm going to write them. Or did you have a writing passion and then comics came later? How did that work out for you?
So I would say I never really thought writer was an option, or drawing or anything like that. But I've always loved any kind of stories, whether it's TV, video game stories, comics, books in general, just whatever. And I've always let my mind wander, but I've never really wrote anything down. Really, the first time that I thought that it could be a thing was The Walking Dead Deluxe started coming out. And at the back of the book, Robert Kirkman had his outline. And it was just a very basic outline, just saying there's one line per page. And this was the idea he had for each page and how he broke it down. And I was like, wow, it's really that simple to start. So why can't I try to start? And then that was when Substack was coming out, and Scott Snyder has a Substack writing class with Best Jacket Press, and Brian Michael Bendis also had one. So I started both those classes around the same time, just to get a feel of, could this be a thing? And unfortunately, at the beginning, I was like, oh, I can easily make money. Nobody's doing this. And now I'm in that world. I'm like, oh, wait, it's not that simple. But
no,
I'm glad it worked out that way, because I might not have even started if I realized how difficult it was.
Very true.
Yeah,
right.
it was fun.
I mean, the joy is that it's possible, even though it's not easy. You know, the idea with crowdfunding, like indie comics, you don't have to only make money at cons and things of that nature. Like, you can actually fund the printing of it, if nothing else, and stay afloat and actually get some, get your own series out there. But yeah, it's not. We all missed the heyday, like that sweet spot, which was probably back right before the pandemic, like pre-pandemic into the pandemic. And now post-pandemic, it's a flooded market. Everyone and their sister are trying to make comics now on crowdfunding, but there is a lot of opportunity there. And you're doing pretty well so far. I mean, you're only on your second one, and you've plainly got an audience for good reason. Again, we'll talk about the comic here in just a moment, but yeah, kudos on that. And I know we've had a couple of creators that did like the comics experience classes and courses online and whatnot. I'd known about the Snyder one. I did not know Bendis did one. That's interesting. And that he did it through his Substack. But and you did both the Snyder and the Bendis. So you took both those classes.
Time. Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
I was absorbing a lot of stuff all at the same time. And trying to figure out how to, figure out the actual pages, like formats, and how to find a team and how to market it all at the exact same time. This was all last year. I was kind of insane.
I mean, to be fair, you did grow up in a 10,000 issue sort of nebulous little nest here. So yeah, I mean, we weren't starting exactly from zero, but we get it.
Right.
Although, but I mean, it's not like, I feel like though, when it comes to the creation of comics, at least when I was younger, the names in comics were like, I always noticed the names, but it was, it's kind of like your imaginations of Hollywood and movies. Right. It's like, it's kind of mythical.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like there's this element to it where it's just sort of like these things come out.
Right.
That's all we know.
Right. You don't know how they're really made. You don't know the process.
Right.
You don't know the production.
Right. There are names on it, and you're like, sure, these are the people that make these things. And we've seen names like, on the movie front, Spielberg, and you're like, right, Spielberg makes a lot of these things. Awesome.
Right.
What does he do? How does it come together? Like, what is the day-to-day of this bullshit? And we don't really know. And it doesn't help. I feel like this was part of the fan outreach back in the day, but I also feel like it extra mythologized the whole thing, which is like that Marvel bullpen stuff, or like the DC bullpen, where it was like, this is behind the scenes, but it was all very staged behind the scenes and very constructed behind the scenes.
It was a Hollywood bus tour behind the scenes.
Right. And so, or like the, behind the scenes on the DVD, that is the approved behind the scenes. And ain't no one telling you what actually happened.
Studio tour, Mom. Yeah.
Right, exactly. To make that film. No, they're not showing you the times the people broke down and cried and sobbed.
Yes.
And, like, broke down in tears and like the trauma of trying to make this shit. And anyway, I think it's one of those things where, because of that, even now, even taking a class or something like that, like which completely makes sense, even though probably one of the things you learned in the classes was there is no one way to do a script. Like, it's sort of like, it's like everyone just kind of has their method.
All the ways are valid, which is frightening.
Exactly. All the way. See,
as long as your artist
that
is
does it for me.
That's all that matters.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, the rapport with your artist and making sure that whatever the ideas are that are important to you are getting across and getting on the final page, then you're golden and good to go. But so Fog Within, was this the very first thing you ever thought to write?
Yeah.
No way.
No, I mean, basically the whole idea came from, I just started doing the class. And I was like, okay, I got to think of an idea. And I'm also a runner. That's all the stuff behind me. I was training for a marathon at the time. I'm not doing that now because I don't have time because I'm writing now. But I was training for a marathon.
Excuses. You can...
I know. Yeah, I just finished working out right before jumping on this live stream. It's one of those things. I'm watching the clock all day, being like, I still got to fit it in. I still got to fit it in. Go. And then it's like, all right, do or die. There's no more time left. Go.
Although
it's such a pain in the ass.
To be fair, Sean, I haven't worked out in about 4 months because I've been actively working on rewrites for scripts. So
true.
And drinking 3 times a week. So yeah. Sorry, go for it. Go up.
So I was training for a marathon. So sometimes you'll have like the 2-hour runs type of thing, and your mind just wanders. It's just the perfect time to think of things, just any kind of thing. And it was just a morning where it was foggy, go figure. And I just had the random thought of, if I ran through that fog and it ended up in the future, what would it look like? And that's where the idea came from. And so my mind just went nuts after that, and I never stopped thinking about it. So this really was the first real idea that I had. And I just love the world that I'm building and all the characters. It's more of an ensemble cast than just a main character at the moment. It will change as the story evolves. But I just love everything, all the twists that I've come up with and how to make it function in the story. Is just insanity.
Yeah, and it is a complicated story, which is why I think why I had to ask. I'm like, is this the first thing you thought to write? Because there are easier ways to you're not easing yourself into this. Okay, so I want to write a comic. No. What? People start with short stories first, a one shot, a something, and even those short stories and one shots aren't aren't an insanely ambitious this is the story I want to fit into 8 pages. They're going to pick a simple story to fit into 8 pages, not this beast of a story. Which it's one of those things where this is a story. Now, this is something that I love personally as a consumer. And I know it's not for everybody, but the story does not it doesn't treat you like you're stupid. And I know everyone said they like not being treated like they're stupid, but
most people are lying.
People tend not to actually is not having their footing with the story. You know what I mean? Where it's like you just have to keep turning the page and trust that it will just keep going. It will give you more. Just you got to keep going with it, kind of a thing. And so many people whenever there's a story that I love, because I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. This is amazing, and I'm just like, this is great. It's so intriguing. Yeah, exactly. And we were talking about this. I might have just been the last live stream we had last week. We were talking with someone last week about the joy of back in network TV days when you couldn't start things in streaming from scratch. So you turned on the channel and whatever was playing. And you were like, if that was interesting, you just started watching it wherever the fuck it was in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, this looks like my kind of a thing. I'm just going to keep watching it. And it made it so much. It was probably made it more intriguing than the story actually had any right to be, because you didn't know, you were trying to figure out stuff that actually was spoon fed to the audience. You just missed that part. Right. So you're like, dude, what is going on? And it was so many things, I think, sunk their claws into me and became experiences that I treasured much further down the line, simply because of that extra intrigue of jumping in at a point that you weren't supposed to jump in on. But no one had that choice. You just had to kind of go with it.
Yeah.
And I love stories that right. Dallas was saying how Thundercats played so early in the morning that he was only sitting down to watch TV in the morning before school during the last 10 minutes of every episode. He missed the first 20 every single time.
Oh, dang.
And so he only ever caught the end of it, and it made it, but he loved it because of that. Because he's like, this is such an amazing series, mostly because he didn't have to sit through all 30 bloody minutes of the things, which frankly were never that well done. So it's one of those things, but this is a story. I want you to give your pitch of this story. I'm really interested to know what your version, if you're at a con, if you come on one of these shows and you're like, okay, for your listeners, here's the pitch of the story. I would have a hard time pitching this just reading the first issue.
Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
I think I'd have to be intentionally vague. That's the only way around it.
Well, you saw me do this at the beginning where I'm like, it's kind of, I don't want to say anything more. And I'm like, how the fuck do you pitch this? But I mean, part of it was like, I really enjoyed reading the first issue kind of cold. I'm one of those people that don't watch trailers. Like, I'm not going to, before I read issue number 1, I wasn't going to go to your Kickstarter page and like read everything there yet. You know, I was just like, I want to know what this is like. If I'm just like, someone handed me this comic, someone turned this movie on, and I'm like, okay, whatever it is, I don't even know what it is. Let's do it and see how it hits me. And this was one of those that every single page, I'm just like, I'm super into, I don't know what's I don't know. but then you just keep turning the page. And for a first issue, it does hit a point, like it's a good ending for the first issue in terms of like, you get just enough that you're like, okay, I couldn't
you want more.
Write a Wikipedia article on this. You know, I couldn't give the actual plot yet, but I do have my like one sea leg going on with this story now that I do want to come back for issue 2. So I think you do a great job of leaving the audience at just the right point where you're not spoon feeding, you're not revealing too much, but we're ready to go to the next thing. But what is your elevator pitch for this dumb thing?
Yeah,
man.
So the quickest thing that I have is it's G.I. Joe or Bad Batch meets X-Men in the apocalypse with the time traveling fog. That's what I've been saying.
One more time.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. Yeah.
One more time.
From the top. This is what we're talking about, folks.
But it's a testament to your influences and the depth of your influences, honestly, to be able to wrangle that much into one singular issue. So that's why I say, like, you're not necessarily starting from 0 or 1. Is like the well you're drawing from is already so complex because of the storylines you'd already consumed as a child.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, so go one more time.
Yeah. So Bad Batch in the G.I. Joe side, it was more because there's the rebels. These elite rebels, they all have code names. They basically, you find out more in future issues, but the basics of the reason for the names is because there's a lot of the parents, a lot of the adults are taken out of the future from this cataclysmic event that happens in the present time. And so they're trying to get away from their roots, that they don't want to reminisce on those things that it hurts too much. So these elite rebels, they change their names to these Greek alphabetic letters. So their names are like Alpha, Zeta, Epsilon, things of that nature. And when you call on these guys, you know that they are the strongest of the strong of what they do. So that was the idea behind that. Okay. So that's the G.I. Joe, the Bad Batch side of things. Yeah. Then the X-Men. So there are some powers. It's not a full, like, just superhero book, because I didn't want to do that. I like superpowers. I love, X-Men and all that kind of stuff, but I love plenty of other things. So basically I was just culminating, like you said, everything that I've always loved into one book. And sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. And when I realized after I already started the whole process and I did time travel, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have started with time travel.
I've done that before.
Yeah, but it hurts when I'm trying to think of it. But when I finally have the idea actually makes sense in that aha moment, that's the best thing ever. So I wouldn't change it for the world.
Good.
So yeah, that's the whole elevator pitch. But the whole story of how it starts is in the present time. So like nowadays kind of thing. It is a cataclysmic event happens. It causes an infection in this town of Brooks, and the government doesn't know what to do with this infection. They're afraid it's going to spread, so they wall up the town. And in this time frame, someone has to take over the government because there is nobody to do it. So this group called Schism comes into play, and they take all the resources of the citizens. So Hunter, he only is 3 days pretty much after this cataclysmic event. He's running and he runs into this fog, and ends up 26 years in the future, and that's how the comic actually starts. So he comes out of this fog, doesn't know what's going on. There's these rebels that are there to extract him because over the years there's this prophecy that's been in place, and they know he's going to be there. The soldiers that are part of this regime called the Swarm, they're like a hive mind kind of cyborg type of character.
I'm sorry.
What's crazy is this is my kind of stuff, because when you hear the author going and going and going, and you can see him in the middle of the tale going, huh. All right.
Right.
Like this is the world I'm dying into.
The joy is, yes. And the joy is, this is the thing though. This is one of the stories that when you're reading it, it is all playing out at a gradual pace. Like it's really not too much too quickly, but trying to summarize it is one of those things where you're like, there's a lot going on here. Like, and it's one of those things that when you start to summarize it, that's where I have to start like giggling, like hearing the summary, because I'm just like, and then this page, this, and then this page, this happened. And you're just like,
You've got the chosen one, you've got the occupying force, you got the mercenaries, you got time travel, you got all the greats, you got all the greats.
And time travel through a fog, and it's through called a fog within. Now, right. And that is something that I don't think I've ever witnessed anything like it in fiction. I don't remember it, and I don't think I have.
I think the only thing I've ever there was a film in the early 80s or 70s which was based on a short story, I believe. But it was about a fog, and there was time travel that happened within the fog, but it was an active thing, so we were in the actual time travel.
I gotcha.
Right. Oh, wasn't that like the time machine? Wasn't the movie?
No, not that one.
Yeah.
No. But yeah.
Okay.
But Sean, first of all, before we get, how did you? I want to know about the plotting of the first two issues, because one, deciding where to drop in, right? Like, because I'm wondering the sort of the breadth of the story. What was that decision like, and when did that come to you?
So it wasn't my first thought. So the first 7 pages are just nonstop action. He's thrown into this, and they're taking on these soldiers, and it's just craziness. And then it goes into, it slows down and tells you exactly what's going on slowly but surely, and introduces the actual characters and things of that nature. But the reason why I did it that way was, in Brian Michael Bendis' class, he actually said a lot of times a lot of creators will talk after the fact, and they're like, man, it didn't really amp up until like the 3rd issue. It didn't really pull you in until that 3rd one, and that's where the action happens. But you need to actually bring that 3rd issue into the 1st issue and start it that way to grab everybody all at once, and then they'll continue the story. So I love that idea.
Into the network. Dropping into the network movie in the middle, what would have been the middle of the movie, and just being like, I'm all in because I'm so intrigued, because I don't know what the fuck is happening, and there's a lot happening. So exactly. So that wasn't my first thought, but that was because of his class. So that's all right. I mean, there's so many nuggets that I've learned from both of those guys, because they've done it all. They're still doing plenty. It's just insanity. So why not learn from the best?
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I honestly, I think if I want to create a comic sort of messiah, I'm going to have him grow up with his father's 10,000 collection, a piece collection, and then take a class by Bendis and Steve and what's his name?
Scott Snyder.
Snyder. Thank you.
That's
so yeah. You are the one, apparently.
I will also throw out there, Sean, as a suggestion. I think there's another show you should go on to. I know we were just talking at the very beginning that like it's too many shows, and you're like, I'm kind of dying. But the next time you need a show to go on to, there's another. You might know him, Frank Martin. He's another Kickstarter comic guy who's out there. He's done many Kickstarters, and he has a YouTube show called Right Now, WRITE now, And it's all writers talking to each other. And I believe you even do like a writing exercise there. But I would love for you two to meet and talk and write together on that show for a couple of reasons. One thing you do, and you do it really well in this comic, and it's something that I've always liked and Frank fucking hates. And I think you two will bond in a antagonistic way over this. And I'd love you both to like throw your arguments out for it. But you do that thing. So Frank, I'm on a couple shared Discords with Frank, and he always complains about writers. He's like, there are caption boxes and it's doing one narrative, but then the people are doing a different narrative and they're going side by side for pages and pages. Like, I hate it. They should all be the same. It should all be the same narrative, not like they're going against each other. And I'm like, oh, I love that shit. I'm like, that's the stuff that I'm like, yeah. And he's like, but then I jump to this and then I have to jump to this and try and keep track of both of them at the same time. And I'm like, yeah, but if it's done well, they're thematically or poetically, or like there's something that's tethering the two things together, right? It's like there's a reason they're doing it, but he's like, writers should never do that. And I'm like, I disagree. I love it when writers do that all the time. But I would love you to not only do I think just because of how impressed I think both me and Dallas were with the writing of this comic and how kind of brazen it was for not only a first issue but a first comic period. For this thing. So I do think that you guys would probably hit it off just as writers doing whatever. He does some kind of exercise. The two of you write together while on that show, however long it runs. It's probably like hour and a half or something like that. So look him up, reach out to him whenever you think it's a good time, and see if you can get on there. But I think that would go over weirdly gangbusters with that. And you should definitely, when you go on there, tell him I sent you and tell him that you love the multi-narration tracks going on at the same time.
Show one more time there, Dave.
Yeah.
Right Now by Frank Martin. Go find that on YouTube. It only started a couple, like 2 months ago or something like that. It's a fairly new show, but he does them every week. And he's met up with a lot of different comic writers. They're almost always comic writers. Don't quote me if they're only comic writers. I'm not 100% about that, but I think so far.
Yeah, I did see I think it was the first episode with Travis. So I did see that actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
and I know it's evolved. I think. Yeah. So reach out there. I just, when I was reading this comic, I kept thinking of him and how much he bitches about that tactic of writing and comics, and I'm just like, yeah, I love it. Stick it to Frank. I love it.
Nice.
But anyway, and also I also wanted to mention how much I appreciated the fact that you stuck the fucking title page on page 18 of this comic.
That's something where I love
which
that.
Is
I was like, yeah,
right. Okay. It's like you get it at the very end of the comic frequently. Like that's something that can happen like fairly often where the comic's just going, and once if it's not on the first handful of pages, you forget you didn't get it, right? And so you just keep reading the comic, and then a lot of the times it shows up at the very end. Movies do this as well, but I always love it when it's some weird in between moment of the whole thing, where it's like a movie opens to a 20-minute action set piece, like a Mission Impossible film. And it goes on for so fucking long that you've forgotten there was never a credit title, like opening credit sequence. And then it hits you 20 minutes in and you're like, oh my God, I thought we were like to the movie at this point. And it just takes you aback for a moment and like, stop it. And when we hit that title page, I laughed out loud. I mean, I was literally just like, holy shit.
Absolutely.
I cannot believe you stuck it on page 18 of a 35-page comic. That is
damn right. Never change, Sean.
Again,
Thank you.
I think the term brazen is a good, or ballsy or something like that is good, but it works. Like you've got a style, you've got your own style, and I think at least with issue number 1, it's one comic, but if that was your first, I am expecting it to simply get better as you go, at least for a little while. Everyone peaks at some point, and then it's all downhill from there. But you got some time.
Not Comic Jesus, also known as Sean Wood.
Sean Wood,
by the way. There's no peeking in this.
All right.
Can you hear me? Sorry. I think I glitched for a second there.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'll repeat it. There are no peaks for
Quote.
Comic Jesus, also known as Sean Wood. You can pull a quote that.
Quote us on that if you want to pull a quote for the comic. Sean Wood, Comic Jesus.
I think
Comics
y'all
Pairing Show.
Reloading at the moment.
Oh, I think we're freezing again,
Oh, no.
Dave.
Oh, we're freezing again. All right, let me try right before we jump any further. Then let's try this. Let me remove Dallas.
Oh yeah.
Bring me back.
All right, there we go.
Let me remove.
There you go.
There we go.
Hey.
Yeah.
And try this again. Okay.
All right.
Bit? Is this better?
How's that, Sean? Are we better?
Nope.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I'm telling you, Eclipse Day. God damn it. What is
All right.
happening?
I guess they want us to upgrade the internet service.
No, I am upgraded. I have good, solid mother. I am Ethernet plugged in and have good Ethernet internet service, and I pay for StreamYard. So, motherfuckers, they need to treat us better than this. Okay,
That's right.
So I think it's time to go take a look at that Kickstarter page. So why don't we go do that? Dun, 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 dun. Let me share my screen here and pick the fog within. Number 1 through 2. There we go. As Hunter learns of the fog, the rebels attack the regime. In this mysterious future, G.I. Joe meets X-Men in the apocalypse with the time-traveling fog. Never forget the time-traveling fog. All right. Yeah. And this is, as you can see, guys, here.
For it.
Almost funded. Very close, but 4 days to go.
That's right.
Like less than $300 to go. Come on, 100 backers. Let's get to 100 backers. Let's anyone who hasn't backed this, we are telling you, back it. It's and let's play the video. Hopefully my internet will not stutter too much while we do this, but let's give it a shot. Here we go. Beautiful. All right. 88% of its goal. Almost there. Okay. Let's come down. Hey, so far we have unlocked 6 free indie books. Scroll down for more info. And number 2, this is going to be a 24-page comic. Once again, the covers. This is the main one by main series artist David Dion.
Yep.
And I mean, there's just so much about like the late 90s, early 00s. Yeah, X-Men, that like his whole art style reminds me of that era and everything I loved about it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd you find him, by the way? Where'd you guys connect?
Yeah, it was on one of the Facebook groups. So one of the larger ones on there. And I just scrolled for like 2 months straight, just trying to find somebody just constantly. And eventually when I found him, I was hoping I could afford him. And it was definitely more than I thought it would be, but I made it work. And we've worked well together, and he's ready to continue on with issue 3 as soon as this one funds. Beautiful. So we're going to keep on going.
Beautiful.
Great.
Beautiful, beautiful. And the alt cover, my favorite of the covers, just because there's something about this that just tweak. It feels very John Carpenter-y. You know, there's something about this one that is just like that kind of B horror action element to it. Something about that. But yeah, that's Gilliard Goulart.
Goulart. As far as
Gilliard.
Yeah.
Gilliard Goulart.
Yeah, and the idea behind that. So I only mentioned that character in the first book. One of the guys is talking about the pets. The pets are ready. and that's one of the two. So they come out to play in this issue, and it's insane when they come out, and I just love it. But the idea behind the pet is basically it's kind of like a Hellboy / Hulk / Pit kind of mixed into one.
Yeah.
And that's the behind this cover is more like a Hellboy looking type cover. Is what I was hoping to go for. So
Hellboy, I can see the Hellboy meets Dale Keown, or however you pronounce his last name. I've never heard it pronounced out loud. But yeah, the Pit artist.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other alt cover. Again, this one just reminds me of J.G. Jones so much. But this is Corlo.
Yep.
Yeah.
I found him on Kickstarter. He was doing a bunch of other books, and just the reality of it is cartoony but real at the same time. Is just insane work, and he did it so.
It has a painterly element, kind of feel to it. Yeah.
Yep. And he's actually not more of a comic artist. He's more. He does a lot of bottle art, like soda bottles in China and stuff.
I can see that.
So that's more where he comes
brand
from.
work.
Huh. Yeah. He does do comic stuff, but that's more on the side, and that's his day to day is doing like the soda stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, and then the interior pages of issue 2. We're actually plainly getting some more details about "quote unquote" the event.
Yeah.
Because that is something, or the Day of Sorrow, or maybe the Day of Sorrow is the day after the event, or something like that. That I'm not sure. Okay.
But yeah, so basically each issue will show a little bit more of what happened in the past to get to this point. And so the first issue had the aftermath, the Day of Sorrow, and it didn't show anything. It just showed, the destruction and where it was. Now this issue shows a little bit more, but not too much, just to keep you intrigued enough to continue to learn about it. Basically.
Yep. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, and then of course, I guess something kind of like training right here, because of course, like an X-Men Danger Room type of a thing.
Got to have the montage.
Yeah. So that's the leader of the rebels is Alexei. He's the one doing like the gun fu, as I call it. He's doing some of the gun stuff, some of the fighting. So he's going to be training Hunter, him and another guy named Cole that's in the book. And they're trying to train him to be able to be this savior that everyone thinks that he's supposed to be, because he's not prepared for that. He doesn't know where or why everybody is thinking that, but now he has to make it happen. So he's learning from them. So that is Danger Room is basically what I told my artist. I was like, I want the Danger Room in my book.
Beautiful.
So yeah. This is the interesting character. So this is one of the elite rebels. So he doesn't have the bronze. He's not the strong guy. He's a younger guy. He's the tech nerd. So he has this drone called ADDI, which stands for Artificial Detachable Intelligence. The reason why I came up with the name is my daughter's name is Adeline. So I used her name in there. And this drone set of 5 drones that they connect to make an armor for him and have their own abilities. But Addie has her own personality. It's very spunky and very bossy. And that's my 3-year-old daughter. So I put my daughter in the book, basically. So so it's kind of like an Iron Man armor, but they all detach in different ways. So it's not just full-on armor, and it has different uses. And like I said, the personality. So that was a lot of fun to write. Do something completely different and trying to explain how it would work for the artist, because it's all in my mind, of course, but trying to put that out on paper, that was interesting. And he was up for the challenge. He was ready to do it. But it turned out great, I think.
Yeah.
Beautiful. A little bit of the unfinished page here, mostly finished, but a little bit of unfinished.
Yeah. So that is the drawn-in page. So everything is done except for that panel right there, and so it could be up to 5 rebels that you can be drawn in. So the book is
Cute.
already done. All of the inks and everything is done. We're almost done with the colors. Half of the letters are already done. But I wanted to get the drawn in page on this issue versus I know a lot of them do the next issue. Well, if you're paying for it now, go ahead and do it now. So we worked out this way.
This is smart. This is good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why that's missing. And that's where the action starts in the issue, is in that scene. And then it just goes crazy after that.
Beautiful. All right. Yep. As we can see.
Yeah.
So that's the spread right here. Yeah.
And really, I had it written a certain way, and it was going to be a double page spread later, another page. But I just recently read one of the Incredible Hulk stories, and it had Ghost Rider versus the Hulk. And it was this insane 2-page spread that just told the story just all through the artwork. And I just wanted to have that in my book as well. And that's what we came up with was this. So I rewrote a couple pages to make this work, and it turned out insane, I think.
All right.
Yeah. I will also say, I love this lettering from your letterer is also very evocative of that era that we've been talking about from comics, like that sort of late 90s to early 00s. And was that something that you very purposefully went after?
Yeah. So I saw his stuff on the same Facebook group, and I mean he did a lot of the action words, the pow bang biff, that kind of whole thing. I didn't want it to do it too much over the top, but I still wanted it to be prevalent in the book, and he just does an amazing job. In the first issue, there's a couple of times where those kind of wording he has, like exactly as like the rock formation and things like that, and it just stands out very well. So
100%. All right. Who will like The Fog Within? So stories with superpowers, rebels, dystopian futures, overlords, futuristic weapons, world building. As we've X-Men: Days of Future Past. Yes, Wanted. I hadn't thought about Wanted, but yes, Wanted, Once and Future, V for Vendetta, and Tokyo Ghost. All good ones. TV films like Dark, Black Mirror, Arcane, Leagues and Legends. Thank you for adding Dark. I cannot tell you how many people I talk to, and I'm like, Dark, and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard about it, and I'm like, well, watch it. God damn it, it's so good.
Blew my mind. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes, yeah. So I'm glad, and a lot of people have it on their list. I mean, I know our streaming lists are like never ending, and I get it. I totally get it, but it's like it's one that I wish more people, like I could talk to more people about, and like could reference it without and actually know what it is and actually have watched it, and like, because it's 3 seasons. Like we binge watch shows with 8 seasons all the time, and like I can't get anyone to watch this fucking 3-season show, and I'm just like, it is done in 3, and it's so good, and like obviously was mapped out from the get-go, and anyway, but I'm happy to see that. Black Mirror, obviously super good. I know this is brilliant. I've heard from everyone it's brilliant. This is one of my bads where I still haven't watched this. Arcane, League of Legends. Last of Us, of course.
Jealous of the storytelling from that show. I'm completely jealous of that. So now that I'm writing, I that's what I see in a lot of shows and movies. Like, I wish I thought of that, or I wish I could do that. I incorporate that. So that's a really good show though.
Ooh, and that's a good one. I haven't thought about Equilibrium, but your gun, they called it what? Gun kata, not gun fu.
Basically, same kind of part. That's where I get the equilibrium side of things. There's a little bit more in the future, and same thing with Dark and Black Mirror and even Wanted. There's gonna be more in the future. It's not really now, but you'll see it as the story progresses. So
beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, your first issue. Oh, actually, it's a good question. How long is The Fog Within planned to run at this point, or is it just, you have the first
37 wonderful years?
Oh Lord. So I thought of it as a 12-issue miniseries type of thing. So I have 3 arcs planned, 4 issues each. So when I did the first issue, I already knew where I wanted the story to progress, but I didn't write it out yet because, with the first issue, I'm like, can I continue this? Do people like this? Do I have an audience, that kind of thing. So once I established that, and then I was going to continue, I got further along, and I've outlined every page for all the 12 issues. So I've written completely the first arc, but then once I get closer to that, then I'll write completely the next arc and go from there. But I know I'm going to complete the first 4 issues no matter what, with Kickstarter, and do a trade. And then after do the trade, then see how things are going and how fast I can continue on. I'll still continue. It just depends on how fast and, money and things of that nature. So we'll see how it is.
Well, we hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So previously on, if you need to catch up, and we've talked about a lot of this right now, so we won't dwell too long on this bit here. Check out a review for issue 1. There you go. And that is for, I can't tell what channel this is.
True Believer is his name.
True Believer. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So a nice little comic review. If you don't want to take our words for it, or you want to see what someone else's opinion is, there
someone
you go.
Someone else who isn't actively drinking wine with their or yeah.
Right.
All right. Yeah. And also raise enough money to continue the story on to issue 3. So yes. Beautiful. Yep. Second issue is already 99% complete.
Mm-hmm.
So there it is. Obviously, illustration. He's paying his artist, so that is where most of it is going. The printing is the other big chunk, and then fees and shipping are the rest. So that's what you got right there. Got all his work for hire stuff and printing and shipping and Kickstarter fees, which don't have a choice in. All right. Mm-hmm. We hope to reach 3,500. Hint, hint. To everyone watching, and add the first 4 pages of Epsilon's 12-page backstory at the end of the book. That would be very cool. So it would be like issues 2, 3, and 4. So yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Then the trade I collected as the one, basically.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to happen in the future at some point. Whether it's I wrote it for an anthology, partial and everything. But if it comes here first before an anthology, then that'd be fine with me. Because you already have the fans that want to know more about all the characters. I have other plans for other characters with short stories as well, whether it's an anthology or in my book, the same.
Right.
But yeah, so I've already written that out completely, but I do want to make that a stretch goal instead of just adding it in anyway. So it will get there, though.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right. And then stretch goals, as we saw at the very top of the page, there are 6 of these unlocked already, because for every 25 backers, 2 creator PDFs get unlocked. That's a good idea. I like that. I might steal that. I haven't thought about doing it in like every 25 backers will unlock a few more. So yeah, 2 packs. So 6 total unlocked because they're at 77 backers all told. So 3 times 25, 75 has been unlocked, but we got to get past the funding goal to unlock the foil sticker, the cover A magnet, Epsilon's backstory. There it is at 3,500. Let's go. And 4,000, 1 to 2, 1.
Issue 1 and 2.
Creator. Issue 1 and 2 creator comment. I was like, I don't know how to read that.
Too many words. So
too many words.
Yeah.
Trying to fit it all in the graph and make it all line up. And I feel that pain as well. All right. And then the unlocked digital comics, we've got, Redemption, XOB or Zob. That one, that's actually a new one to me. I have not seen that one around before. And then Blood and Fire, yes, Shaman Destiny, Talos. This is another, I think, new one to me. What does this say right here?
It's Jake Sunrise.
Jake Sunrise. Yep. That is new to me. Okay. Yep. All right. Beautiful. Like father, like daughter. And help me out with this one here.
That one I'm not sure actually at the moment.
You're not sure.
Okay. On the screen too.
Yeah, I think that one's new to me as well. That I have not tried that one out before. So, but anyways, 6 whole comics. I mean, what have you got to lose? And you don't pay more for it. You just have to, back whatever place you back, and you get them all. So, booyah! Behind the scenes with the artist. If anyone wants to watch that, they can watch that video here. And then the reward. So $5 for the digital, $10 for obviously digital catch-up because it's 2 issues. Digital Deluxe, which I'm assuming has some behind the scenes stuff, for $12.
Yep, you got pencils, inks, concept art, commentary from me. So certain pages explain, you know, what I was going for and how we got there and the whole process. So that's what I did for the first issue. It did pretty well, and I enjoyed doing it too. Just explaining more about me to put out there in the world. It's a weird feeling because before this I didn't do that. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Beautiful. All right, and then $10 for the main cover, 15 for either of the alt covers, 35 for metal cover. There you go, or 40 for metal cover and a metal. Oh, and you get a metal trading card with all the metal covers. So there you go. And the alt metal cover is 40 for this one and 45 for this one. All three covers, 35, all in package. So a little bit, you get the T-shirt. You get is that a sticker? Yeah, it's a sticker.
So it's the standee. So a 6-inch standee. So I don't have an action figure or anything, but I have that standee already made. I have like a sample one, but that'll be a 6-inch, and it's turned out really well.
Cool.
Cute, very nice. Yeah, all right. Holochrome cover. There you go with spot foil logo. you are a child of the 90s. The metal cover and metal card. I'm telling you, I'm a sucker for them too. I get it. Savvy retailer #1 for getting some multiple copies of issues 1 and 2. Savvy retailer #2. And Epic retailer, which has all the covers of 1 and 2.
Yeah,
it looks like.
Yep.
An Epic retailer issue 2. All right. And get drawn in. Here's that get drawn in for $200. You can be one of the 5 places on this panel. And of course, you get all these other goodies: the standee, the T-shirt, the physical copy, the digital copy. And then we got the add-ons. We got bookmarks, foil trading cards, the T-shirt, the standee, the Gary sticker, the extra. Is there a story behind that?
Yeah, so the drawn in page for issue 2, and in the first issue, there's a guy that's screaming, which is that face. There's a shot taken near him, and he's screaming.
Yeah,
my son became obsessed with this image in the book, just a random guy, no name. Well, at night when he's going to bed, every single night, he had to zoom in on this page, and he called it his friend Gary. So like, from now on, he's 9. So from now on, I said each issue will have a Gary page, and more likely that'll be the drawn in page. So if you see Gary,
my friend Gary,
Gary will always be in there somewhere. That's great.
Yeah,
it's like it'll be your where's Waldo, right? Where's Gary? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we got to get a Gary one off at some point in the future. So my friend Gary,
so he does. So with the outlines for all the issues, he does have a story arc by the end of it. So at the beginning, he's not really; he's just there. But the further along the story goes, it actually ends. The last page ends with him at some point. So I'll say that
beautiful.
It's been a lot of fun just writing that for him, and he just loves it. He does want to say like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I was like, no, that doesn't really make sense. But I'll still have Gary there though.
Wait until I hand this off to you in 20 years. You can do what you want.
Right.
Oh, beautiful.
Very cool.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. And then we've got the creative team, of course. Sean, David, Josh as the colorist, Letter Squids as the letterer, Justin as a comic letterer, variant cover artist who we've already covered there. And all right. And the timeline. So end of July, expected to deliver to international mid-July. So July is when we're expecting to deliver as of this time. So anything else to talk about this campaign there? Or have we covered it?
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right. Let me stop sharing that.
Wow.
We will get that. And I'm going to, for anyone who is in the chat and still watching, going to put that link right in there so you can go to the Kickstarter. Oh, and we did have John from Part-Time Comics while we were looking at the Kickstarter page. He joined us here. Oh, I've never heard of this Sean Wood guy. Books look cool. Of course you haven't, John. Glorious. All right. Well, we are at the wine pairing time of the show. It's my turn to go first, right, Dallas? You
it
did
is.
last time.
It is. I think.
All right. All right. So, what do I have for everybody here? I have, and Dallas will not be surprised. It's a couple that I'm going to reveal here. I do have the one that is like my pairing. It is the main pairing. It is the one where I'm like, this is what I recommend. But I wanted to give people a few options because, of course, what if you're not into the style of wine that I recommend, or what if it's not available wherever you are? So I wanted to give a couple of possibilities out there. So this comic, we've talked a little bit about our response to the story and the style of the comic, and I really wanted a wine. I read the first half of this issue, kind of stopped, and was like, I need to reread that again. And was just like, I think I want to go slower and try this again. And having read the first half without drinking anything, I went and started to be like, okay, I think the vibe of this comic is that like there is an obvious element of confusion that is on purpose, where it's like you're not supposed to have your bearings right from the get-go. So I wanted to find something, and I, like with any pairing, you can go one of two ways with something where when a comic has a very heavy aesthetic or style to it, you can either match that style or you can pick the opposite of that. So it's kind of like balancing it out a little bit, where you're like, okay, this comic is really complicated. I want a really simple wine to go with that because I don't need something to be distracting me from the comic. In this case, though, I really wanted to double down on what I was experiencing. And I was like, I want a wine that matches the complexity of this comic. I want something, and wine is one of those things where there's a full range and a full gamut of experiences when you're drinking wine, but the general range is like you've got your simple porch sippers, you've got the stuff, they're very pleasant, they're very nice, but they're not complex. They're very straightforward, they're very simple, they're generally one or two very prominent notes, and that's what you're there for. And you love it, but at the same time, you don't have to think about it. You're not sitting there like really mulling over what you're sipping, what you're drinking. And then there's the ass end opposite extreme, where the wine just keeps you like, okay, you know pretty right away whether you like it or don't like it, but you are hard pressed to say why. Because there's just a lot happening in that glass that you're like, even people like me in Dallas, even people much better than me in Dallas with wine, people who are truly like, this is their profession, they are certified, they've taken, they've passed certain incredibly difficult tests in the wine world. Even, you never stop learning about wine, you never stop getting challenged by it. It's one of the things people love about it when they get really nerdy about wine. And even those people will still stumble across wines where they're like, I need to sit with this for a while before I can give you tasting notes. Like, I don't know what the fucking notes are. I just know, like, again, I like it, I don't like it, but I'm sitting here struggling. I've got to think about it. Dallas always has a phrase he likes to use, like, it's a glass I want to sit with for a while. And that is absolutely what I wanted to go find with this comic. This is a comic I needed to sit with for a little while, where when I was first just like, oh, it's a superhero comic, flip, flip, flip. Yeah. And I got about halfway through and I was like, nope. Back
like,
to the beginning.
Hold on.
To the beginning. Right. I'm like, nope, this is not one of those breezy reads. I got the wrong idea. I need to go slower and take my time with this. So I went to go find a couple things that would work. And my number one, I don't have the bottle anymore, but I'm going to share my screen here. And my number one choice. Oh wait, this is not the. Here we go. This is the tab I want to share. Present. Share screen, and this is the one that looks like that. Here we go. So this is my number one. Oh, I got the Sorry, all the website marketing material suddenly popped up. Let me get rid of that. There we go. This is the. Come on, guy, go away. Go away. Oh my lord. How do I get this?
Try the bottom
to go?
one.
Okay, I'm gonna refresh the screen. I'm just gonna refresh the screen. Give me a second. This thing wasn't there
Did you get
the whole
Dow
time.
Bodyguard?
So
there it is.
here's the name. It is the Dow Bodyguard Red 2020. Was the vintage that I drank, was the 2020. And Dow, if I'm even pronouncing this, I don't think it's actually pronounced Dow. I think it's like Dow or Dayu or something like that.
It's Dow if you lived in
region
Virginia.
Portugal without the U. It's just D-A-O. Is it?
If you spent any significant time in Virginia,
it's the joke
Dow.
there. Okay. Okay. So this is a big brand. This is everywhere. So people can find this one really easily. The Bodyguard, here we go. The Bodyguard is not necessarily there. So it's not the one that you're going to find as easily per se. As you can see here, it's about $41 per bottle retail. This one's right now is on sale for $34.99. And generally $35 to $45 is sort of the range that you will find this bottle in. Dow is, and once again, just to let people know, because a lot of people aren't wine drinkers, but if you see DAO without the U, that is the Dow in Portugal. That is not the same thing. That is a region in Portugal. That's an imported wine. That's not what we're talking about here. You have to find the DAOU, which is a Napa Valley winery that was started by two Lebanese American brothers back in 2007. And man, did they take off big. It sold recently to one of the major wine corporations for $1 billion. And they bought the winery from them. But to be honest, if you've ever had these wines, there is a gateway DAOU wine that you can find at like Trader Joe's, at your grocery store. It's like about $20 to $25, depending on where you buy it. And that's like their baseline. And even that one is fucking amazing. And so this one is one of their upper, and then their upper tier wines are hundreds of dollars a bottle. So they go the full gamut. But I would even recommend their baseline wine. But this one, which is that nice little middle spot where it's like it's 35 to 45. It ain't cheap, but it's not breaking most people's banks to go out and buy one bottle of this. And this is on wine.com. This is something anyone can order from. And this bottle will show up in a lot of Total Bevmo, or Total Wine, Bevmo, all those basic, like probably not your grocery store. That one you can find the basic DAOU Dow wine, but this one you can find. And the reason I chose this is a blend of Petit Verdot and Petit Syrah. I think it's about 60-something% Petit Verdot, 30-something% Petit Syrah, all Napa Valley. And this is one of those wines. It is intense. It is a Napa Red through and through, but it is also complex. It is layered as a motherfucker. And when you first open it, this is one of those wines that you need to definitely let it breathe, like decant it, pour it in your glass, and just let that glass sit there for at least an hour before you actually drink it, and just let it get some air. It's going to benefit from that, and it's going to open up more. But even beyond that, this is one where you get the gentle, this is not what's in the glass here. This is something I don't have. I drank this last week, so it's gone. I kept the bottle for a little while, and I accidentally stuck it in the recycling bin during the weekend, like an idiot, and woke up this morning being like, oh, I put it, but anyway, so I'm sharing my screen instead. But this is one where when you first sip it, it's very like a Napa Red. It's got all that juicy, dark, brooding fruit, and it's very fruit forward at first. And then as you swallow, all these other like savory layers start throwing in there. You've got these like black olive and sage and bacon fat. And then even as that lingers on your tongue, it goes into this weird minerality where it's like pencil shavings and this little like stoniness that then comes through. And it just keeps unfolding. And your next sip, and then the fruit, weirdly, and this is one of my favorite things about it, it even goes back to a little bit of fruit at the very, very end, where all of a sudden you start tasting the same fruit again, and that layers on top of the minerality. So it's not an unpleasant finish. It actually like everything about it is absolutely gorgeous. But it is one of those things that every sip, it just stops you. And you have to think about what the hell it is you're experiencing, because so much is going on all through that sip. Petit Verdot and Petit Syrah are known. They're usually blending grapes. They're in California. It's becoming more and more popular to see them on their own, and in this case, just a blend of the two. But in France, like in Europe, they're just blending grapes where they pepper it in with other wines to like give it a bigger body, to give it a little bit of something, but they don't put a lot of it in there. And in California, they grow so ripe and nice and fruity that they actually wind up being pleasant. And Petit Syrah is very fruity, but very tannic. It's got rough edges to it. And Petit Verdot, you get a bit more of that. You get more florals, like dried violets and like these sagey. I think a lot of the herbaceousness mostly comes from that Petit Verdot. So together, they're just like undulating waves with each other, and it's phenomenal. I cannot recommend this wine more. And I think it works for this comic more than anything, simply because in that same way that like it looks like a breezy superhero actiony read, but then when you're reading it, it's not. It's just, it keeps layering different things and throwing things at you to the point where you have to stop and think. But so the one thing I would caution on this is you can't if you're reading a page, don't be sipping the damn wine. Like, read the page, finish the page, and before you flip the page, take that sip, think about your wine, then flip the page. You got to kind of like back and forth it between the two, because they're both taking your attention at the same time. So that is where I would go there. And I will also say, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. This one is $35 to $45. You do have to go to a liquor store. It's kind of like Total Bev or Bevmo. But if you live near a Trader Joe's, there is a poor man's version of this wine. And that is this rough and ready Petit Verdot versus Petit Syrah bottle, which sells for, I believe, $7.99 a bottle. So it is nice and budget. And it is similar. There's a lot going on in the glass. It is not as nice. Let's get that out of the way. It is $7.99 a bottle for a reason. And it is rough. It is much rougher around the edges. Like, it's tannic. And it's fruity. It's very fruity, very tannic. I like this wine. I don't love it, but I like it. But if you can't find the other one or don't have the budget for the other one, I do think this is a poor man's version that can do in a pinch. Works super well. And the last thing I will recommend, and then I'm done, Dallas, I promise. The last thing I will recommend is, if you fall more towards the sweet wine end of the spectrum and you just don't like dry wines, period, you need a sweet dessert wine. The one I also tried with this book that I do think worked really well. This is one called, let's get, there we go. It is Jurançon. All right. Juranc with the little squiggly underneath it. It's French. O-N. Jurançon, that's a region in France. This is considered the poor man's Sauterne. And Sauterne is a dessert wine out of France that is very well known for its sweet, but it also has this incredible acidity that keeps it very light on its feet, and this does as well. There's a lot happening in this dessert wine. There's a reason, unlike most dessert wines, it's sold in a full-size bottle. It's not sold in just a little tiny dessert size bottle. And that's because it's not the acidity keeps it from feeling too sweet, too unctuously sweet. And then it's got all these layers of like these citrus and stone fruits, like apricots, and all these different like florals, these vanilla-y florals that are going on in there. And it's just like, I drank almost a full glass of this while reading the second half of the comic. And I was just like, yeah, this works real well. So if you're into sweet wines, Jurançon is actually, this was like a $20 or $25 a bottle wine. So again, not budget, but not expensive. It's like, you can find that this is not a well-known region, but you can find it. Again, though, probably every Bevmo or Total Wine will have at least one of these. Just be careful. There is a Jurançon Sec, SEC, and that is a purely dry version. of this wine. They're rare. You probably won't stumble across it. They mostly are known for making dessert versions, but just in case, make sure it does not say Sec in big letters on the bottle, and you can do that. And those are my pairings. All done.
All right. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm
Over to you, Dallas.
yeah, I'm processing your choice here. I get it. So that complexity, and those two varietals for sure are together are quite complex. So yeah, I see that. All right, so a little backstory here, Sean. Generally, I default to either a wine I want to drink as a character in as a background character who never gets involved. I will never save anyone with the Heimlich. I will never, jump in and save a grandma or a child. I'm Where's Waldo with no interest in helping anyone.
Where's Gary?
Or,
Nice.
or the varietal I'd like to I actually sit with while reading the world you've created here, and I chose the former. I knew I wanted something that was sort of because of the fog being sort of an omnipresent kind of character, and it would cast a looming shadow, and because of the sort of time travel, and because of the confusion around his potential messiah sort of messianic complex, I knew I wanted something that was sort of a standalone, that sort of complemented this character's sort of attempt to figure out his place in the world, number one. And I originally thought about a red, but my problem with an entire bottle of red is I need to move on after a glass or two or a glass and a half. So I can't imagine drinking an entire bottle in the course of this being in this issue. So I decided maybe a red would give me a little more sort of latitude in terms of the flavor profiles, in terms of the pleasantness, particularly leaning towards the sweeter varietals. But I then decided maybe a Pinot Noir white. You here with me, Dave? Are you here with me now? Did I freeze?
I understand the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Okay, good. All right, good. We'll get home. Don't worry. I had a 2020 Blanc de Noir Nahe from Nahe, Germany, paired with I think an issue we did about 3 or 4 months ago, and that was a 2021. And at the same time, I had a Pinot Noir white that was vinified without skin contact, and so it ended up being this sort of blushy, almost champagne adjacent white, and it gave sort of stone fruit and quince, and the flavors and the notes were very gentle and pleasant. And I imagine I might need some of that in your world where there's so much fucking confusion going on, right? I was like, let me return to the glass here where everything makes sense to me in the moment, And but then I decided maybe I need to broaden my concept of wine. Once again, I'm going out of the box here, Dave. And I decided that maybe if I could find something that gave me a similar sweetness, that had sort of an acute fragrance, that had really dominant kind of notes, that opened up on the glass a little slower, that I could actually sit with all day. And for me, that class is usually whiskey and rye. And there's a curious little whiskey, a rye whiskey that is aged in Caribbean rum casks. And because of that, rum, rye whiskey itself is already pretty sweet, to me at least. And when it's aged in these casks, these rum casks, you get this banana, you get this coconut, you get this what's it, molasses, sugarcane, this thing. And so it really ends up being this satisfying party that just kind of leads you on this journey. And I think I might need something a little stronger than just the wine to inhabit this world. So I originally, as I said, I was going to go with the Blanc de Noir 2020, the Nahi Estate blend. But I decided to move over on the spirit wheel a few rungs and go with this Templeton rye whiskey, aged 4 years on the glass. On the nose, you get some banana, you get some coconut, you get some sugar cane, you get some pineapple, you get all the things that I imagine the characters in this world would think of as simple comforts that they would value immensely. So yeah, that is my pairing, completely outside the box. It is wine of a different sort, and the purists are probably turning off the stream now because I chose something as common as rye whiskey.
Well, rum barrel aged, and no, that would be brandy. Yeah, rum ain't got nothing to do with grapes. So, oh well. But still. So for those who don't like wine at all, Dallas is your friend here.
Right.
Sometimes people tune in and they're like, "Yeah, I don't really drink wine," and I'm like, "No, we get that." So
Sure.
It's always good to sometimes, I think, throw out something that is not traditionally wine or grape based or anything like that. So,
and again, it is the broader
I agree with your
definition
reasoning
of wine. Yeah, you know.
I wish I liked rye whiskey myself personally more. I need to work on that because I've not developed the palate for whiskey.
I will say rye whiskey, depending on the aging process and the treatment, it does mirror wine in the sense that it opens up over
100%.
time on the nose.
And people who are obsessed about it are obsessed about it in similar ways.
Yeah,
so yeah,
absolutely.
100%. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, Sean, what you got?
Right. All right. So yes, Sean is, as usual, we always ask our guests to bring on a comic they're going to shout out. And yes, Sean, I brought up a tab.
And no White Claw.
Share my screen. And no White Claw. You are not allowed to do White Claw. That is only for Travis Gibb. He has popped that cherry on us, and we are never letting anyone else claim it. Although,
unless White Claw wants to sponsor us.
Unless White Claw wants to sponsor us, that's correct. They can afford it. God damn it! We're not mentioning their name until they sponsor us.
The comic that I was thinking of was the Manhattan Projects. That's the most recent story that has kind of blown my mind. And I know it's been over for years, but that I just read it like 2 months ago. I'm actually still need to read the last volume because I couldn't find the last one. But what I could think of to pair it with, it was difficult because that's definitely not my forte. Y'all did an amazing job of describing, and mine won't be as detailed. So basically, I'm not really a wine drinker. I'm more of a beer guy. But I couldn't think of a beer that would go well with this book. So I mean, it starts out slow for like maybe 2 pages, and then after that, it's just insanity and gets crazier and crazier and just blows your mind. And so it might seem like a normal good idea to start with. And then at the end, you're like, what the heck did I just read? And that's where my mind was going for the alcoholic beverage. So the only thing I could think of was tequila. And only in the sense of
the regret.
Tequila always ends badly.
And then it ends badly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
that's great.
That was my best description. So it's not very detailed, but that's where mine won.
You could blossom it out with all the detail and minutia of the notes and process of creating the tequila. But at the end of the day, that pairing matters, and that's all that matters. And we get it. So yeah.
So straight tequila for you? Are you thinking, or yep, just straight? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And for this comic in particular, one, the way you described it, would you compare it to something like manga in the way that it's just like weird and nonstop and just like goes crazy, or not quite? Something else?
Yeah, no, I would say that. Yeah, I mean, I don't read too much manga, but yeah, I mean,
Okay.
definitely. And it gets crazier and crazier, and the art is insane. I think it's Nick Patera. He has an indie book that he did last year. Axe was his name. It's like John Axman or something like that. Yeah, something along those lines.
I have it.
And I didn't realize
I bought it, but I can't remember the title now. But yes.
Yeah. So I mean, just his artwork is insane, and of course Jonathan Hickman. I mean, just his stories are so complex. And there's actually something in this book. So I mean, everything that I read, I pick little things here and there, but there is something in this book that I put in issue 3 that just made complete sense. So just a little semi teaser. It's not really anything there, but there is something from this book in there.
You're inspired by something.
We'll circle back for another episode when we figure it out.
I did want to ask you though. It's funny. You were like, I still haven't finished it. I haven't found the final volume, and I was like, damn it, that's what I wanted to ask. So Hickman for me is always one of those, like, I've read East of West, and outside of his very first comic ever, which was the Nightly News from Image. I don't know if you've ever read that. That was, he was not known yet. I think it was 6-issue limited series. I swear by that miniseries. It is. Look for that. If you love Hickman, that was the very first comic he ever did. And we're talking about how complex your first comic is. And same conversation. What the fuck, man? What he did with that 6-issue miniseries, I was just like, who the fuck is this guy? That said, since the Nightly News, I feel like his epics, for me, it's usually the ending that I have the most issues with Hickman, where it's like the journey is astounding. The journey like has me attached at the hip, like I am along for the ride. And then it's sticking the landing that, at least for epics, I feel like with shorter stories, he does much better. But then with Nightly News, where I'm just like, this is a perfect miniseries. But then with his epics, it's usually like bringing it all together at the end, where East of West really let me down. But I wanted to be like, but does it end well? And you're like, I don't know.
Right.
I'm like, oh well, I will have to check this one out at some point anyway.
So Hickman is the Stephen King of comics, is what you're saying.
Stephen King is hit or miss. Come on now, he's hit or miss. He does have his lame endings, like
he's much better at the shorter stuff, in my opinion. It's much better.
See, it is a perfect novel for me. I thought it was I think it's a perfect ending. I also, Dark Tower was as good as it could ever be, given all the time we had to imagine the perfect ending. And like we also had this conversation on a previous live where it's like, he took so long to finish it that like our imaginations were always going to be better than anything he could act. Kind of like how Game of Thrones, whatever George R.R. Martin does now, it's never going to live up to how long we've waited for the fucking thing. And it's like, so just end it, dude. Just give us something. And as long as it's good, we're fine. As long as it's better than a TV show, we're fine.
Unless Stephen King is watching and wants to sponsor us, then you're great at everything.
The Wine and Comics Pairing Show, why wouldn't he? He has nothing to do with comics or wine, but hey, Stephen King, come sponsor us. Absolutely. All right, let me stop sharing this other. Oh, look at that. Yep.
There we go.
And did that do it? Yes, perfect. All right, guys. Well, that has been another Wine and Comics. Once again, Sean Wood, the writer of The Fog Within. Number 1 and 2, we've read issue number 1. We loved it. It is complex, but it is well.
Correction. That's
Sean
the
has
comic Messiah known as Sean Wood.
Comic Jesus. The comic Jesus. Be consistent. The comic Jesus. That is the poll quote.
Right,
we're not gonna. There you go. But once again, that is only 4 more days on Kickstarter. They're at 77 backers, just a little under $300 shy of funding. And if we can get another 1K on top of that, we get that 4-page backup story that will begin the origin of one of the characters. So let's get there. If you're watching, if you're watching right now, if you're watching this after the fact as a recording, get over there. The link is below this video on YouTube or in the comments of the live chat, wherever you're watching this, and go check it out. We highly recommend it. We've been very impressed. Sean, thanks for being on. This has been amazing, and we wish you the best on the final couple of days. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next thing that this series does as well, because this has been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Signing off, guys. Ciao for
Night,
now.
guys.
We will catch you tomorrow, where we will have the Unsleeping Eye and the two creators of that, Brian Level and Kurt Belcher. So join us then, and we will talk about that. Good night, whichever coast you're on, and we will check you then. Signing off.